Hello and welcome to the program. Now, if you're a Nigerian, then you know that 2019 is an important year everyone in this country is looking to, especially if you're a politician. Nigeria will be holding its general election in 2019, and as you can imagine, the political atmosphere in the country is already heating up. Things are unfolding very fast. Now, let's turn our attention to some kind of political intrigue, if you like, that is playing out at the moment, and that's the schedule for the election next year. As you may be aware, before now, Nigeria's election regulator, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC for short, had fixed the date of the election for February 16th to March 2nd, 2016, starting with the presidential and National Assembly election, which of course was scheduled or is still scheduled for February 16th, 2019, and then the governorship and state assembly election for March the 2nd. Well, the National Assembly has now voted to change that arrangement. The lawmakers have now amended that section of the Constitution and changed the schedule of the elections. They want the National Assembly election to come first, followed by governorship and state assembly elections, and then the presidential election will come last. Now, that amendment will have to be assented to by the president before it becomes law. And the lawmakers have made it abundantly clear that on this very amendment, if the president refuses to give his assent, they would veto him. Quite interesting. We just have to wait and see how this plays out. But there's no question that there's more to this amendment than meets the eye. Now, that's not the only amendment the lawmakers have actually made. They also amended the law having to do with the sequence of party primaries. With the new amendment, state houses of assembly primaries will come first, followed by that of the National Assembly, then the governorship, and finally presidential. And of course, the amendment also says the primaries shall not be held earlier than 120 days and not later than 90 days before the date of elections for the offices. One more amendment I should mention, which I consider very important, is that on election funding or expenses, if you like. Now, the amendment increased how much a presidential candidate could spend for election purposes from 1 billion naira to 5 billion. For governorship candidates, it is 1 billion naira instead of the previous 200 million naira. Senatorial candidates can't spend more than 100 million naira, while House of Representatives, I should say, candidates, for them it's pegged at 70 million naira. For state assembly and local government chairmanship elections, candidate expenses had been raised from 10 million naira to 30 million naira, while councillorship candidate spending were actually raised from 1 million naira to 5 million naira. One more thing. Any individual contributing or making any contribution at all for election purposes to any political party cannot contribute more than 10 million naira now. Before it used to be 1 million naira, now it has been raised to 10 million naira. Quite a lot of changes, I must say, and it's quite surprising that these changes often happen. I mean, we always have amendments to our electoral act and our laws each time we're close to having any new election at all. And as I said, all the amendments would require presidential assent before they become law. Joining me now to talk more about these amendments, I have Nelson Ekujimi, who is a political analyst and election observer. I also have Wale Oguade, who is a lawyer and the president of Voters Awareness Initiative. And of course, joining us from Abuja is Lorraine Suraj, who is the president of, that's a coalition of, civil society coalition, I should say, against corruption. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on the program. Let me start with you, Lorraine Suraj in Abuja. What do you make of these amendments we're seeing? Especially, let's start with that having to do with the schedule of elections, because it appears the lawmakers are really keen. They're really, should I say, they're serious about this. I mean, for coming out to say, look, if the president does not assent to the law, they would veto him.
Well, thank you, Deji. I think these are interesting times for us in the country, and it is rather also important for us to, as stakeholders in the consolidation of democracy, and also, most importantly, our electoral democracy, to also engage the parliamentarians in the formulation of policies and laws. Also, when we talk about amendments of the law, it is very important that factors responsible for fixing of election dates and time are not just what you sit down and do political interest or political calculation to come to terms or decision on them. Varying the dates of the election really might not be a problem. But when you consider the amount of money, now looking at the financial implication, you consider the amount of money that goes into conducting election in Nigeria, the time that it also consumes in terms of declaring public holidays for elections to happen, and then also restriction of movement. You would also understand how much of this would affect the economy of the country. But for the parliamentarians to be talking about having separately the National Assembly election, then the presidential election, and then governors and House of Assembly, governorship and House of Assembly election, then you want to ask yourself, why would you separate, the presidential and the National Assembly, and you still joined the governorship and the House of Assembly together? It only tells you one thing, that there's a whole lot of fear on the part of the parliamentarians and now the National Assembly members that they probably might not also have a kind of support from whoever the presidential candidate can be, and for them it is to win their own election first, and then anything can happen with the subsequent election. So otherwise, I think, and I'm of the strong opinion, that the hold order of where you have the National Assembly and the presidential election together, the House of Assembly and the governorship election together, should still be the election timetable that should be operated in Nigeria.
Okay, let me just pause you there, and let me come to you, Nelson. I mean, with what the National Assembly members have done now, with this amendment, if the amendment stands, of course, if the president gives his assent, what it basically means is that we're going to have 3 rounds of elections instead of 2. In the past, of course, you have presidential and National Assembly elections, then you have a governorship and state assembly. But now they've removed that of the National Assembly, put it separately. So it means you're going to have 3 rounds of election. And to be candid, that it's going to cost money. Well, what do you make of it?
Well, thank you very much. I think first and foremost, the amendment that they made, they said it was an amendment to the Electoral Act. And you and I know very well that the Electoral Act takes roots from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And what the National Assembly has done in this case is a violation of their powers. Because I've gone through the Constitution, the test schedule of item 15, and I don't see where the Constitution has empowered the National Assembly with the powers that, they are assuming is an usurpation of functions.
But they have the powers to make laws.
They have the powers to make laws, but for them, the ground norm for the Electoral Act is the Constitution. If any provisions of the Electoral Act runs foul to the provisions of the Constitution, that Electoral Act becomes null and void. So what we are saying in essence here is that, look, even in making this amendment, assuming we are even going to give them the benefit of doubt.
Because if this was a constitutional amendment, the process of passage would have been different from that.
It would have been different. Then you can
have gone through.
Then you can also see, for you to know that the legislators, the parliamentarians, have a hidden agenda. Even while passing the law, they are already sounding a threat. Is that what is expected of any responsible legislator? For you to pass a law and you're already threatening that if you don't do this, this is what we are going to do, when you know you are doing the right thing? So the truth of the matter now is that, one, we are going to challenge this amendment because it is a violation of the powers of the Independent National Electoral Commission. 2, you also have the amendment of the Constitution. Like why we have problems in the country today is that our legislators just sit down and believe they can make any laws. There are security implications. The conduct of election is not only the responsibility of INEC. There must be security on ground. Have they consulted with the security experts to be able to guarantee that their personnel will be well on hand
to
go 3 rounds? Those are key issues we should look into. But rather, you can see that they are more concerned with their survival. And that is why they are separating it. Because whether you admit or not, for any time we are holding elections, we know the economic loss to the country. So it means the 3rd round, the economic loss that we accrue to the people and the country for the third day, for the third round of that election matters less to them. All their concern is how do we ensure we are returned. I think this is an amendment that I'm very sure we are going to engage constructively, and there are some parts of those amendments are not going to see the light of the day, because again, you can see what they have done. Even after the independent electoral body had released its timetable, they are now coming up and telling the president to assent such that it will affect the 29th. It means they are making a law retroactively. So in essence, we are back to the military era.
Let me get your own take on this, because this is quite interesting when you consider what these lawmakers have done. I mean, what they have done is to amend the Electoral Act, not the Constitution. And they've come out to defend their position that they actually have the powers to do what they have done, and that what they have done is not in any way against the spirit and provision of the Constitution.
For a long time, members of this 8th Assembly, for a long time, has held this country by the jugular. They've been behaving as if they are above the law. They behave as if they can do anything. But I'll leave that. I'll address it very soon so as to know where we are going. Woe befall any student that dictates to his teacher the time of his examination. Woe befall that student.
That's exactly what is happening in
the
this
politicians, the exam time for the politician is election. So any politician who now wants to determine his time of election, he's going to fail. INEC is the master in this game. And the Constitution, by virtue of Section 159, particularly in the time schedule that my brother was trying to read out, item 15, particularly Section 2 of it, gives INEC all the powers to organize. And that is in the Constitution, not even in the Electoral Act. And the Constitution, it was going there, is a ground norm. So if they go to amend the Electoral Act, they are just on their own, because Section 1.3 of the Constitution is clear. Any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void. So let them go on that voyage of nonsense, that whatever they want to do. But I can assure them that even if they try intimidating the president, they will have people like us to work with.
Their argument is that, look, what the law allows INEC to do is to fix the date of election, that the law does not say, the law does not give INEC the power to fix the schedule of elections.
I know you are playing the devil's advocate.
I'm just saying what the law
gives you power to do something, then definitely it gives you the power to execute it, to carry it out. The law cannot give them power to fix date of election and now say that they don't know, they should not have the power to determine the sequence. That is one. Two, is it even commonsensical? How do they set it up? Are they starting from the top? The members of the House of their own election. Is it the top or is it the bottom? What I know is that the least election is that of the House of Assembly. And the most important election is that of the presidential. They are in between. So how do you now pull your own election if it's not out of...
Take it forward.
And take it forward and make it number one. All of us that are listening and watching went to school. You never start your 1, 2, 3 from 10, 11, 12, 13, or you can start from 11, 12, 13, but you can't start from 5.
But to be candid, what do you
can't
think,
start from the median.
In your opinion,
yes.
What do you think the lawmakers stand to gain?
They are just selfish. That's all. And look at them. Ever since they have been in that assembly, they have not sat down to call the CBN governor to say, yes, we want interest rate for young entrepreneurs to come down. You CBN governor or you GMD of the NNPC, come. What is your corporate social responsibility to my people in my constituents who are my voters? None to support the poor man or the ordinary Nigerian on the street. Everything they have been doing is about me, their wardrobe allowance, their own salaries, and all. Disclose this. They have refused to. And all, you want to put another crisis on Nigerians through your own election? This sequence, except you want to tell us that the people in INEC don't know what they are doing. If those people know what they are doing, then definitely the law, and I want to use this opportunity to tell INEC that they should not be intimidated. That's what they did. They have done it before with ICPC, EFCC, the Code of Conduct Tribunal. If you remember, when they started, of course,
yes, to amend the
so they should just
act,
allow the
right.
examination to go on. If they fail, they fail. If they pass, they pass. No giraffe or no using any. They should not untwist anybody to winning an election.
Okay, let me go back to you, Lorraine Abuja. What do you think, in your opinion, do you think the lawmakers have any ulterior motive in this?
Oh, it's obvious, and I think that is what one of the colleagues in-house there just mentioned. You know, it's obvious if you see the body language and you see the tone of the line that was being maintained by the legislators with the issuance of threats, you know, of veto over the president's decision. It clearly tells you that they knew they were actually pursuing an unpopular position. And either within the power of the National Assembly to fix the staggering of the election or otherwise, or to fix the time, I think laws that are expected of the parliamentarians are to be devoid of selfish and ulterior motives that will be at the detriment of the collective interest of the country. And like I said, I mean, it is not just to the extent that this is self-serving. It is also the economic, the security, and financial implication of even going the line of the decision of the National Assembly. So we must also look at this so that we can make that point clear to them. And unfortunately, we shouldn't also allow many of these discussions to just be restricted to executive legislator decision, discussion, or imbroglio. I mean, the civil society and the media should also get into this and then do a critical analysis of the position of the National Assembly, and then also come up with the implications of this. And then let them tell us what are the merits. I mean, because the point is, we've only just seen a new chapter coming from the National Assembly with regards to the separation of the days of the election. But we've not even heard what are the bases and what are the merits that inform this change that is just being effected. Who are those who are advocating for this, upon which the National Assembly reached the decision?
Hold on now. Hold on, because I know the lawmakers said the reason why this is important is to, you know, enable the electorate know their representative, know those they want to vote for. That's what they've said. That, you know, that they want the people to know who their representatives are so that they are able to make their choice and choose whoever they want to vote for.
In what way are they going to know them? By separating the days of the election. The parliamentarians have their days to campaign. That is when the electorate will get to know them. It is not at the ballot boxes. You don't have their faces on the ballot boxes. You don't even have their pictures. You only have the political parties. So knowing the elector, knowing the parliamentarian or representative would be done through the campaign period and time, not an election. And if that is to be genuine purpose and reason, why is the same not done for the House of Assembly?
That's a good question, but I'm going to come back to you. I want us to talk about something else. I mean, because it's not the only amendment the lawmakers made. Another significant amendment, and I want to get your take on that. I'll start with you, Nelson. The amendment in terms of campaign funding now. I mean, for the presidential candidate, they've increased it from 1 billion to 5 billion. Governorship from 500 million to 1 billion. I mean, they increased, of course, for senators. You have, I think, 100 million, and then for local government chairmen and what have you, or state assemblies. So they've increased. You look at the increment. Do you have anything against it, especially when you consider the fact that, look, let's face it, the old figures we had were actually not realistic. Politicians were spending more than what.
The truth of the matter is that the parliamentarians have used all these other amendments as a smoke screen for their main agenda, which was this illegal amendment, illegal enactment of a law or amendment of the Electoral Act to accommodate this new sequence of the election. My colleague in Abuja was talking about the merits or demerits. We should even keep that aside. Within the Federal Republic of Nigeria, where we are all domiciled, this is our Bible. any act by either individual or institution that runs contrary to the provisions of the Bible is an exercise in futility. And you and I know well that governance is serious business. So we don't expect our legislators to be taking us for a ride, to turn the hallowed chambers of the National Assembly into a comedy house. It's unacceptable to us Nigerians. And looking at this amendment of the Electoral Act to accommodate these new changes in courts, you want to ask, how did they arrive at this amount? How have they empowered INEC to be up and doing with monitoring these funds? Because definitely you and I know the statutory body to monitor whatever amount is the umpire. In what way have they helped the morale or the capacity of the umpire to do its job? But rather, they are more interested in how they will return, and it will be business.
But do you think this will change? Do you think we'll begin to see some semblance of accountability now in terms of campaign funding with this?
It's still the same old game, unless and until the electoral umpire is empowered, is mobilized to do the needful, and with the other stakeholders, that is the media, the civil society, and even the electorate, coming out, providing platforms where people can say, oh, I know this man got, or this party got so XY amount of money, and it can be investigated such that if the party or the candidate is found violating the law, the consequences, will befall that party. But we don't have that on tape. So what they are just doing now is playing to the gallery. So I'm not taking
you run Voters Awareness Initiative, and well, this must be some kind of good news, because I know you've always complained about campaign funding, but now this funding has been increased, sort of, because I mean the provision, the old provision, if you like, or the current provision we have, you look at it, actually not realistic. Politicians spend more than what the Constitution actually provides. So, you don't think this is actually far-reaching and will have far-reaching impact? And then another important provision I would also want you to comment on is this, the amendment allowing individuals now to, donate as much as 10 million naira to political, because in the past, individuals were not allowed to donate more than 1 million. But we know politicians had always looked for a way to go around all of this. And
that's just where the issue is. The politicians know how to go around it. So what they are coming to the floor open to do is just be mischievous. They know how much they spend on their campaigns. And of course, my brother again here in the studio with me, when they are, INEC is not empowered to monitor them. There is the INEC has a campaign, party finance monitoring of department in their commission. But obviously, with the amendment to the act, obviously it will be a way of untwisting them. Who will now say he wants to dare to now monitor their spending? And of course, let's even look at it. How can you prepare to it? In the next few weeks now or months now, billboards will be all over the country.
They're actually coming up.
How do you pinpoint? Then you see handbills all over, posters all over. Then they come to people like you to place adverts. How? All over with the media, with the avalanche of media outfits that we have. So all those ones to me are mischievous. They know that definitely that is not it. They just want, just as my brother said, the whole idea is to use that as a cover-up. The main thing is to bring out the issue of moderating the time so that it will favor them. All these ones, who monitors? They have supporters. People bring in money. They don't go to the bank. The politicians don't spend money through the bank. They do it cash. And if any revelation, the last Dasuki gate is anything to go by, you know that they spend money through cash. They don't go through the banking system. So how do you now monitor? Or do I stay in the gate as an election observer or one of those people? Because I was one of those that went for the training of this IFS, International Foundation for Electoral Systems, training on party funding and co. After we now read the announcement that Nigeria is a different ball game entirely. Other climes, their money system, any penny that has to be spent goes through the party system. But here you see some individual, a big man, sponsoring some candidate, paying for the bills, picking the bills, hotel bills, the people who will be dancing around, those who will be, all sorts of things.
And all of that difficult to monitor. Absolutely. But Lanre, do you think this new amendment would make any difference at all in terms of campaign funding, election expenses in this country?
It's basically to just run contrary to the agitation and demands of Nigeria. We've been working towards ensuring that we reduce, the influence of money in politics, and they've actually also gone ahead to increase that, contrary to the wishes and aspirations of Nigerians. Who is enforcing that? Even the minimum that was established in the law that you have, they've been spending outside of and over and above the limit, in terms of the campaign financing. So for them, increasing what that would not be enforced in any way, it's just more or less raising also the bar and then attracting more funds and legitimizing the unfortunate monetization of the electoral process in Nigeria, and it is rather unfortunate.
And I think you have a point there, because what this basically means is that you just have to be a rich man to contest for elections in this country.
Precisely.
And that's a very strong point.
I'll have somebody who has a deep pocket to support you.
Because if you want to run for president and you require $5 billion.
I think Larry has introduced, a new
dimension.
If you have to invest $5 billion in a presidential election, then it means that you must also be looking forward to getting into office and recouping the money.
Obviously.
And if you do the same thing for the governorship, you're already also setting the template for stealing and corruption once they assume office.
Obviously. And to confirm that, you remember that a Southeast governor the other day, because he was not playing to the gallery, his removal was orchestrated by his godfather, who said that he wasn't getting anything. That I sponsored him to become governor so that we could do.
And even as at that, I think one thing I've drawn, a lesson I've learned from it is that they are sending a clear signal that, look, if you don't have deep pockets, don't even try it. So in a way,
to
it
keep
will
people,
scare away people who are
away,
interested in service.
Who are genuine.
Who are genuine.
Who are patriots.
Yes. So that is also a fallout of this, there are amendments.
And we will not fall for that gimmick.
But we are going to take it up.
We are not going to fall for it.
Because that's what it basically means. And if a presidential candidate is required to spend as much as $5 billion and you don't have a monitoring system, it means that presidential candidate, $5 billion would certainly not be enough.
Of course. Who even monitors? How can you capture the finances of it? Like he has rightly said, we know the type of system we operate here. And a lot of the money comes through physical cash.
But another thing I want to find out very quickly before we end the program, we do not know how these amendments will be submitted to the president. Will they be submitted individually or submitted all together, and the president is supposed to give his assent to the amendments altogether? Because if that is the case, then you can have a situation where, as you said, the key amendment, I'm talking about the sequence of election now, will be subsumed under these other, because I don't know how it will be done anyway.
Obviously, they can't bring it one by one. They will bring them together. And of course, I know that because people are alert, everyone now is on the alert, then definitely I don't see it going.
Lanre, how do you think they're going to bring how do you think they're going to bring them to the president, one by one or all together?
No. It's usually going to be done in a single document. So all the amendments will be encapsulated in an amendment to the existing.
So this is more like a trap.
Yeah. So the president then would have the also prerogative of either assenting to it wholesale, or he will write them back and say, no, I disagree with this one there, I disagree with this one, I disagree with this one. And at that point, then there will be a need for the trading between the parliament and the executive on what can either be dropped or what can be accommodated or what can also be explained. But usually it's a single amendment to the Electoral Act that will go to the president in one bit. And then the president, just like he recently did with, I think, about 3 bills that were passed by the National Assembly, where he had to return them to the National Assembly with his own reservations. I think it's going to be the same process.
But you look at it, these lawmakers have said, if the president does not pass it, they will veto him. So this could as well be a done deal.
It's not a done deal.
It's not a done deal.
Because we operate a constitutional democracy. We don't operate by the laws of the National Assembly, for Christ's sake. The laws governing the National Assembly governs every Nigerian. So what they are just trying to do is a slap on democracy. Because I've never seen anywhere in the world where a parliamentarian will make a law and be threatening the executive. You either sign it or why do you need that?
Even when the law has not been presented.
Has not been presented.
And the second leg is that indeed we have an independent body that is in charge of this. And I'm sure they know their constitutional role and duty.
All right.
And I'm sure they are going to exercise it. Because we cannot allow any body or any institution to run short over the other institutions and other Nigerians.
Lanre, this is not a done deal, right?
No, it's never a done deal. I mean, the power of the National Assembly to veto is not even, it's not automatic. It is not total. So when you see the grandstanding of a threat to veto, it does not bring it to the end of the discussion. So the parliamentarians who are also doing the like you rightly said, you're already threatening when the law has not been, even the bill has not been transmitted to the executive. It shows you, like I said, that they are very conscious that they are towing an unpopular, line of argument or amendment to the law. And we would wait to see how that unfolds.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Lanre Suraj from Abuja, thank you very much for joining us and for your contribution.
My pleasure. Thank you so much
Nelson
for having me.
thank you very much for coming. Wale Ogunade, thank you very much. Let's just wait and see how all of this unfolds.
We won't wait and see. We'll be involved.
We are involved.
We are involved. We won't wait and see.
Okay, so
it's about our lives.
Wait.
It's about our lives. We won't wait and see.
Any attempt to wait will be
catastrophic. No, we are not going to wait and see.
Okay. All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking security matters. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that band.
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues.